This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on the Trisbit, get on mandate. Get it on, and welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. It's Mark Garrigus over there.
In the studio, many people looking very forward to today's episode, Adam. Many people have tweeted at me, texted me, anxiously awaiting our analysis and reaction to everything this week.
Well, this is a subject as far as the votes go, and, you know, so here's my general overview of the whole thing. The left talks about voter suppression. That's horseshit. Like, look, if you got to fucking show a license to do something, that's not exactly voter suppression. Like an adult,
did you vote in person? Did you vote in person? Okay. Did you go vote in La Cañada at that little auditorium? I pulled my license out. Yeah, well, I pulled my license out. The guy goes, no. He said, no, you don't need to do that here. I said, wow, that's interesting.
If you cannot vote unless you're legally an adult, 18 or over. If you live in this country in 2000 and almost 21 and you're an adult and you do not possess an ID, then you don't participate in this nation. You don't participate. Like, I'll fucking turn the argument right back at you. If you are 44 years old and you don't have a license or you don't have an ID, then you don't pay taxes and you don't there's no way you could participate in this thing called the United States. No, so that's horse shit over there.
Now,
and
wait,
the rights horse shit.
Okay. Then you talked about 18. The most surprising proposition, Gary, I haven't checked it today, but it looked like it went down to defeat in California, was the one that said if you're 17 at the time of the primary, but you turn 18 by the time of the general, there was a proposition to allow you to vote.
And Proposition 18.
And it didn't pass, right?
No, it was rejected.
Well, first off, the average 33-year-old who lives in California is emotionally 14 years old. So you take an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old, he's a fucking zygote. Today. Not 1944. Today.
So California, we're just in such a different land because you saw today, just as I was driving in here, George Gascon was about to have his press conference, but Jackie Lacey just conceded and actually cried. I'm told. I didn't watch it, but cried about the fact that she was conceding, and it's amazing because she's a African American female prosecutor, and she lost to the 66-year-old. George Gascon, who is former LAPD, then San Francisco DA, now the LA County DA. Boy, is that LA County DA's office. I can't even tell you what's about to come. The ideologues in that office, their heads must have exploded. This is going to be a earth-shattering, mind-blowing event for them.
What do you mean by that, the ideologues?
There's about 30, 35 years ago, I used to joke. In fact, I like to think that I had some input into you being a former federal prosecutor. I used to talk about the bleach blonde former federal prosecutors that I used to do all of these various shows with. Mm-hmm. And there was this movement, so to speak, where you weren't a lawyer trying a case, which is what I've always thought you should be in a criminal case. Yes, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, and yes, if it's crime.
As a DA or as someone who works for the DA.
As a prosecutor, a prosecutor, whether it's in a U.S. attorney. But at some point, there tended to be kind of what my father used to call true believers, and it was like they're on this noble quest, and they're on the white horse, and the defense is bad, and blah, blah, blah. So that gained a lot of momentum. And I would say 10 years ago, if you had predicted George Gascon winning against Jackie Lacey, I think I could have given out 50-1 odds. Nobody would have taken it.
Is it because he's so progressive?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And remember that famous Black Lives Matter where her husband came out and her husband's now being prosecuted for holding the gun on at the front door. And it's It's an amazing time we live in. I always talk about the pendulum swinging, but I just wish my old man was around to talk to him about this. He would not have believed this. This would blow his mind.
Well, as far as being progressive, and I know Gaston kind of fucked up San Francisco. Now, his work is done there, and he's come to fuck up L.A. But
well, look on the bright side. I saw a picture. Was it today? The picture of Biden and Garcetti together. He's already moved on.
Yeah. Oh, Garcetti, good.
Yeah. I think he's already moved on. I swear. Somebody was saying last week. They were telling me, no, he's not going to get the position. He's not going to go to Washington. I said, why? He said, because he's got a guy that got embroiled in a sex scandal, his advisor, whatever the guy's name was. I said, that doesn't matter one whit. This guy's going to D.C. He's going to be head of HUD.
It's mind-numbing to me because I got my parks screwed up when we were talking about
MacArthur Park and
MacArthur
Pershing
Park.
Square.
I keep screwing up the park what is my park? The one
Echo Park.
Echo Park, where Dodger Stadium, that kind of down the hill from Dodger Stadium.
Down by the Chavez Ravine,
Echo Park is
nothing. That's the one with the paddle boats.
It's nothing but tents.
Correct.
It's nothing but pitch
If you
tents.
go like I do to downtown and go over the hill through Dodger Stadium, you take Stadium Way, that takes you right through there. You get a bird's eye view of everything that's happening down there.
Yeah, I think this one's the lake with the paddle boats. Anyway, every ounce of green space has a tent pitched on it. And my thing is progressive policies fuck up cities fast. Why do we need more progress? Why do we need a more progressive agenda? That's L.A. got fucked up with a progressive agenda. Why are we going Gaston? Why don't we go another direction?
I'll tell you what's amazing to me is as I've mentioned several times, I have many females who work downtown, and 201, they all want to flee. I mean, 201. And they don't feel safe.
What happens if Garcetti goes to Washington?
Well, I think, isn't the city council president, doesn't she become acting mayor? And then I'm sure there'll be a food fight. Mike Feuer, who's the current city attorney, who, by the way, prosecutes, I've talked many a time about his prosecution of marijuana offenses in a dedicated courtroom in East L.A. at the same time that the city is collecting the tax revenue from it. So that he would be a perfect candidate for mayor in the city of L.A. because the hypocrisy would run rampant.
So let's hit the election for a second.
Okay.
I was going to.
There's so many tangents here. I mean, I wanted
to finish
right
by saying the left talks about voter suppression, which doesn't exist. I mean, 100 million or however, 120 million people voted. And by the way, not ID is not suppression.
We're almost at 145 right now.
145 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no voter suppression going on. And then the right, wants to talk about counting ballots and mail-in ballots and all that kind of stuff. And it seems the prevailing wisdom is if there's several hundred or maybe a few thousand between you and your opponent, then that could be an issue. But once you get past 15,000 or 50,000 or 80,000, then how's that?
I read something yesterday
that,
for recounts, for instance, Georgia is, if you're less than 0.5% between the two candidates, that triggers a recount if the aggrieved party wants it. So Georgia looks like it clearly will be a recount.
They've come out and said as much this morning.
Yeah,
is it 0.5%? I heard it was 1%.
I'll look into it, but I can tell you from what I was observing this morning that the state has announced that they will be doing it. So
okay,
it's interesting there too, because one of the other kind of conundrums they've got is the Senator Perdue, who's running against Ossoff, has fallen now below 50%, which puts him into a runoff. So it'll be interesting to see whether or how far below 50% he is, and whether, in fact, the runoff or the recount, so to speak, impacts the runoff as well. But as overnight, Pennsylvania has come around, and they're now calling Pennsylvania for Biden as recently as an hour ago.
Trump really doesn't have a move here, right?
No, I just don't see what he's got.
But what will he try?
Well, I think one of the things they'll try is they're still hoping for Georgia to do something. They're trying to get part of the problem he's got in Pennsylvania, the U.S. Supreme Court kind of called the timeout, basically, and it was 4-4. And then there was an indication by 3 of the justices that we'll keep it here, basically, to see what happens. But the way that Pennsylvania is coming in, the vote is coming in, it does not appear that that is going to help him. And the other thing I was going to mention is there's been a lot written about recounts, but I'm not familiar with any recount that where the margin is less than 20,000, where it's changed the result.
I don't see a direction here for Trump, especially as these votes are tallied and it's going the wrong direction.
Correct.
If the votes were tallied and they were moving his direction, then there's a move. But something I was thinking about on the drive in, and I do want to ask you. So there's a bunch of stuff going on there with the FBI and with Steele dossier and all Durham and Mueller and all this stuff and all this not Mueller but Durham looking at the stuff, and there seems to be ample evidence that the FBI and the powers that be going all the way to Obama. Now, I'm not saying Obama did it, but I'm saying Obama possibly was aware of it. I mean, like I said, so let me just set the table of this. I have watched reporters, there's 2 or 3 reporters have been reporting on this, and they've been doing it for about 3 years, and they've not been wrong about anything. So I'm basing it on these couple of reporters I've seen. There seems to be ample evidence that there was an intentional attempt by the FBI and the Obama administration and beyond to railroad Trump with the whole Steele dossier and Russian collusion and all that stuff. It fucked him up royally. I mean, he literally as a 4-year term, he spent 3 years of it defending something that didn't exist. I mean, literally a dossier that the FBI themselves said, this is hearsay, it's worthless. And they just moved on. And they have texts and they have emails and they have testimony. They got a ton of shit. If I'm Trump, I'm like, this can't just go away. This is my entire presidency. What's his move now? And what
I think he does
do?
the same. I've mentioned this a zillion times, and I know some people's heads can't get around this, but having had a front seat to Whitewater, it reminds me of exactly what they did with Clinton. And so Clinton, I think, and the move by Trump is going to be very Clintonian. I think that you're going to see him position either himself or one of his family members for 2024, just like Clinton kind of basically had Hillary positioned for the follow-up elections. Because Clinton was, I mean, I've had several conversations with him about Whitewater, phone conversations.
Bill.
And he can talk about it for hours. And if you want to talk about somebody who is aggrieved and thinks his presidency was tainted by it and impeachment and everything, he will. I mean, that's the irony of this. He was impeached. Trump was impeached. Both of them feel enormously aggrieved by the process that they went through.
What are your rights as a civilian? So you were the president. The FBI essentially launched a campaign to get you out of there. It ruined your presidency, essentially. Now you're not the president, but we got all this evidence that they did that. As a citizen now, where do you go?
Well, I'll tell you, I think he's got much greater peril than that. I think that if you read the tea leaves as to what's going to happen, the U.S. Supreme Court gave a pretty good indication that they think that the Manhattan DA's office has enough, and it's a criminal investigation, to pursue all of the tax fraud and basically other kinds of bank fraud. if that's the case, even, there's a lot of talk. People keep, at least in the legal journals and legal blogs, about whether he can pardon himself. Remember, pardoning himself for federal crimes, because that's what it would be, is only good for federal authorities. If, for instance, and this is just a for instance, a lot of people have speculated the Southern District of New York either could or would indict him in connection with the Michael Cohen case. Well, a pardon would wash that out, whether it's him or whether it's orchestrated through Pence if he resigns earlier, something along those lines. That would not wash out the Manhattan DA's office. Manhattan DA's office is, in my opinion, along with the Attorney General there, who's already kind of taken aim at his charity, he's got jeopardy there. And he's going to be embroiled in all kinds of things. In addition to that, when the Department of Justice just a couple of weeks ago went to the Southern District in that case and tried to substitute themselves in, the judge there, the district court judge, would not let the Department of Justice substitute themselves in. That case is not going to go away. He's going to spend the rest of his life. I mean, Howard Stern will look like a prophet, because Stern always said, why did he want this? Because it's going to end up torturing. He had a good life, and it's going to be torture for him for the next 4 years. I wouldn't want to be the guy having to pay all the legal bills he's going to have to be paying. I mean, it's astronomical. And I think there is legitimate criminal jeopardy.
Agreed. But that in no way answered my question.
Yeah. What is his? Well, because I'll tell you this. Because
if you're going to have
you're
a private citizen, let's say you're a private citizen and you got railroaded by the FBI and there was some smoking guns, what would your recourse be?
Well, you've heard me rail before about qualified immunity. Generally, as long as they get through. If they didn't bring charges, then you have very little remedy unless you could torture yourself into kind of a Hyde Act situation. But if they did bring charges, then the irony of what happens is if they find probable cause, you have very little recourse. I mean, if there's probable cause, that kind of insulates what. But
I don't think there was probable cause. They had this Steele dossier, and they said this thing's not worth the paper it's written on, and then they said, "Well, go forward anyway."
Well, the interesting thing when you say there wasn't, you've got the FISA court. And the FISA court, which was one-sided, obviously, that by design, saying basically we were lied to in 18 different instances. You've got the Inspector General coming through with all of that. What's the remedy for that? Very little.
Okay.
Very little remedy. But first, do you know where there is a remedy?
Geico?
No, NetSuite.
Oh, NetSuite. Sorry.
Yeah. If you're a business owner, you don't need us telling you running a business is tough, right, Adam?
No.
But you might be making it harder than necessary. Don't let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down. Stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you the info you need when you need it. If you upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, which, by the way, is the world's #1 cloud business system, you get visibility and control over financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more, all in one place instantaneously. Unbelievable. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in revenue, save time, save money with the world's #1 cloud business system, NetSuite. Right, Gary?
That's right. Join the over 21,000 companies using NetSuite right now. Let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/doubt. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/doubt. netsuite.com/doubt.
So in answer to your question, too, because I've thought about this, because I've had clients in the past, and the client will say, "This is ridiculous. Why do I have to pay a fortune in attorney's fees to defend myself when I didn't do anything?" It's a common refrain, and you make the claim against insurance companies, and insurance companies say, "No, we define claim as something where somebody's seeking monetary relief from you. Mm-hmm. We don't define claim as when the government's coming after you to put you in, unless you write specifically for that coverage, which generally you can't." So there's very little remedies. I mean, you could go to trial and win, and then you could make if a judge makes a finding, you can sometimes get some kind of recourse. But it's a very tough position to be in. I mean, there is when you're the person who's in the crosshairs, because you know, I remember, and I've said it before, Ray Donovan, not the TV show, but Ray Donovan, the former, I think he was head of Department of Labor. He was indicted back in the 80s, I believe, acquitted, came out into the courthouse steps in Washington, D.C. and said, where do I go to get my reputation back?
Right.
He famously said after a couple of drinks that night, okay, where do I go and who's going to reimburse me for all these goddamn legal fees? You know?
Right.
So I mean, it's one of the problems with the system, with the way the system is set up.
So what can we expect? And I think the Uber ride stuff, I think that
Prop 22, that passed.
That one passed.
Yep.
So
that was a very smart campaign.
That one passed overwhelmingly.
Yeah, very smart campaign.
Let Uber drivers
Correct.
just be.
Uber will live on in California.
Right, because I remember a lot of people who normally would be on the other side of that don't take away my Uber, don't take away my Lyft.
Was Uber, you think Uber would just go away in California?
If they would have had to, yeah. I mean, it's just not in their business model to be able to provide the kind of.
This is kind of my feeling is look, they made billions based on basically not having to play in the same kind of sandbox that the taxis did, but the model is entrenched, and in spite, I mean, they did this proposition in the face of 3 or 4 court decisions recently. I mean, saying that they had to classify them as employees. So they took it and they just kind of flipped the script. And they had, I don't know how many of the ads you saw, but it was somebody.
I saw a lot.
Right. I want to earn my money. I don't want to be tied down. You know, give me my freedom.
I like ad season. I like when they do the prop season, because my favorite commercial. I like commercials where the woman in real life, there's no version of this actual individual. Like I don't know. There's 2 commercials that make me go nuts. There's some commercial for like a rain gutter block system, screen that goes over the top of the gutter so the leaves don't fill it up. And in the commercial, the guy who represents the company is doing like a little symposium. And the symposium has about 50 people, couples, and attractive women married to attractive older guys, And they go, all right, who here cleans out their own gutters? And out of the 25 chicks were there, like 19 of them, hands go flying up. I've never met a woman who's cleaned a gutter, not who looked like that. But my favorite woman is the prop woman. She's the one who's sitting at the breakfast table. She's good looking, but she's not all done up to the nines. This is morning. And she's looking at the prop, 26, and her husband comes into the kitchen and she says, have you read the fine print on Prop 26? I say that woman doesn't exist. I've never seen a hot woman who read the fine print in her kitchen and then wanted to share the news with her husband. I propose that woman has never been born.
You think that's a unicorn?
I think that's a unicorn. But, here's the thing.
So wait, I want to turn on you. What if I'm going back to the question you asked me? What do you think's going to happen here? Play it out.
Play it out with Gaston, or play it out with Garcetti or Trump? Oh, I think Trump will try a bunch of shit, but I just don't see any path to this.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. I think if it had just been Pennsylvania, he had an argument and he might have gotten some traction, but I don't see how it works. What do you think?
Can I take it a step further? I agree with you, Adam, that there's probably no path and that he's going to try a bunch of legal shit. What's Trump doing come March?
I think he's going to have his own media company.
I agree.
That's what I would say.
And set up his son for a potential run.
Yeah, I think Don Jr. is being molded by Kimberly.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Look, I've spoke to Don Jr. on multiple occasions. He's a sharp guy. He knows how to talk. He's no dummy, and he, you see little 4-minute blips of him on Hannity or something, and he comes across as a real partisan, whatever. But you can have a conversation with him. Like he will go back and forth. He'll see other sides of the issue. Like there's a side to him that you're not going to see on Fox News, but there's a side to him that's pretty approachable, sort of human, nice. Like he's a regular guy. I know everything in the Trump administration's a caricature, but I would not underestimate him.
I wouldn't underestimate Kimberly. I mean, I've known Guilfoyle since well before she ever married Gavin and divorced Gavin, and she's been a force of nature as long as I've known her.
I do want to say this, and I know it sounds dumb, but I think you and I are the same. All I need's a little indicator. Like, I'm like a chick going out on the first date, and if I see the guy waiting in the hall and the dog comes up and he kicks the dog, that's not a bubble. There's no first date. That's all you need to know about a person. I have little snapshots. So I was reading Junior's book before I interviewed him, and in the book, he said he grew up on a construction site. He knows how to drive a skip loader and a backhoe. And he said, like, I know the difference between a Sawzall and a skill saw, right? And it sounded like Trumpisms, you know what I mean? Like, and you picture him showing up in a 3-piece suit when he's 9, or maybe a sailor suit, and, having all the work guys get him his lunch or whatever. You think, oh, that's a lot of regular person talk, but you probably never did it. When he came in here,
did you give him a little bit of
where Gary's sitting, I said, I read in your book, you know what a Sawzall, and you know the difference between a skill saw and a Sawzall? I'm going to fire it up for you. And I want to know. And
he identified correctly?
He identified correctly. And then, which anyone I could do, I mean, anyone been around, but you would have to be around that world. You know what I mean? He identified it correctly. And then he said, well, it doesn't have to be a Sawzall because Sawzall's a brand name. It's like Q-tip. It could be a cotton swab. It could be a bayonet saw, a reciprocating saw. And I was like, that's exactly, yes. Then I thought, okay, you only know that if you spend a bunch of time on a site. That's not side information, Jeopardy, trivia shit. If you know that Sawzall is a brand name and it's really technically, it's like Makita doesn't make a Sawzall. Makita makes a reciprocating saw.
I can assure you I never knew that. I absolutely never knew that. Never knew it, and I will, by the time this drops, I will have forgotten it as well.
You shall. I can repeat this story this time next year. But so I am saying,
repeat it next week, and I wouldn't remember.
He's a real guy, and he might have a real path.
I read something somewhere where I forget what publication, but that was kind of the Guilfoyle Kimberly plan was to of make him into the heir apparent for the Trump name.
As someone who lives on the internet a lot more than maybe you guys do on a day-to-day basis, his father has always been heralded as, a master of social media. Don Jr. is 5 times better at social media. His social media game is, it's a lot of it is dunking on people and making jokes and stuff, but he is very in tune with the digital generation.
Well, also, you have to think about this as well. Well, first off, I like Dan Crenshaw, the guy with the eye patch. I've interviewed that guy multiple times, former Navy SEAL. I've actually had a beer with him after the show. That guy is wildly impressive. But you also have to wonder, because I don't know if we knew this so much, with the Obama administration and we had a recession and blah, blah, blah. Biden and Kamala Harris, they're going to fuck up the economy. We're not going to have a great 4 years. We're not going to have a robust economy under these guys. I think they're going to fuck it up. And I think we're now going to have a sort of an A and a B. If they fuck the economy up in the next 4 years, it's going to leave the door wide open to a Trump or a conservative or somebody's going to get in and go, we got to cut regulation, we got to cut taxes.
It's very interesting because today, Gary, maybe you could find it, Didn't they make the announcement on the unemployment figures? Or was that yesterday?
Yes, they're very low.
Yeah, and also the stock market. Whoever made what they call the $5 billion whale bet. Have you heard this?
No.
There was somebody who made and I assume it was an
billion?
institute. $5 billion with a B. Gary can Google it while we're talking. On the stock market going up the day after the election, and we had read about it last week. It was kind of the talk of the business internet, and it was called a whale bet. Did you find it, Gary? $5 billion with a B. And man, whoever did that was talk about what a return on your money, because apparently it was based on the options expiring and played right perfectly into the market timing on it.
Who the fuck takes that action?
$5 billion. And
I tried to put $5,000 on Johnny Weir on Dancing with the Stars, and the bookie only took $2,500. He's like, I'm not going to take that kind of action.
That's way too much. That's way too much.
Yes.
Gary will find it. It was called the whale bet. Is that? Did you find it?
I'm still looking. Yeah. It's,
So then the other thing that's fascinating me today is it's also breaking as we're talking, Adam. Have you, Steve Bannon, who's been indicted by the Southern District of New York and was found on the boat of the yacht of a Chinese fugitive financier who's accused of crimes in China. Bannon was banned from Twitter yesterday, I believe, right? And
correct.
Yeah, and was banned for talking about, he basically said on his podcast that Fauci and Christopher Wray, Dr. Fauci and Chris Wray, who's head of the FBI, that if the first thing that Trump should do when he's reelected, or since he's been reelected, Bannon was saying that Trump was going to be reelected. The first thing to do is he should fire both of them, and it's too bad you can't do what they used to do in Tudor England, which was, put their heads on a stick and put them out in front of the village.
Yeah.
That got him banned for inciting violence.
That's a pike. Put your head on a pike.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. So my thing with Twitter or banning or whatever speech is, if you say they should fire them and then cut their heads off, then you could probably be taken down. But if you said you should fire them and they should do what they used to do, then you've qualified it.
And by the way, I may disagree with virtually everything that Steve says, although there are some areas where there is agreement based on his foreign policy. But the idea that you could
he likes Armenians.
Yeah, exactly. He's anti-Turk. Exactly.
That's all it means.
You exactly. All roads lead through Erdogan. The interesting thing is, what are you going to do if they come for you and want to ban you when you say, well, historically, speaking of Erdogan, I want to talk about the Turks, Ottoman Turks, and the genocide. If I go too far in describing what happened to them and Armenians and what they did to the Armenians, does that expose you to being banned as well? Can you not cite history? Is there a certain where is the limit? And also, at a certain point, one of the legal arguments for not being able to sue is the immunities that are granted by Congress, but that's generally because they're not exercised. They're not they're an aggregator as opposed to a curator. Well, if they're now curating, doesn't that expose them to liability?
I feel like they've been. Twitter's been doing way too much sort of shuffling things around, like the whole COVID thing. Like any doctors that said masks aren't effective, or any doctors that said hydrochloroquine are what was it? Did I screw it up? Hydrochloroquine? I keep screwing that one up.
Hydroxy.
Yeah, a whole bunch of doctors said hydroxychloroquine is good. They're like, take that shit down. Like, what the fuck? Why is that your job? And by the way, it is effective according to a whole shitload of doctors. Why? But why is it only your opinion? Like, well,
I don't understand.
This doctor says no. All right, that doctor says yes. Well, yeah, but we got to take it down. Why? Because everything has to be vetted by your doctor? This is a bunch of fucking doctors, too. And by the way, hydroxychloroquine, Dr. Drew was sitting where you're sitting, said he was doing some research on it. He's like, if you're a pregnant woman and you're on it and you get pregnant, you don't have to come off it. It's that inert. Like, it's that safe. So what's
Drew,
Twitter? Why is Twitter getting involved with this?
I don't understand this. It's part of the conundrum of the First Amendment. Just because you don't like the speech doesn't mean you get to censor the speech. The whole idea of the First Amendment is you're supposed to have a marketplace of ideas. Are some ideas crazy? Yes. But who's the one? Isn't it kind of scary at a certain point that you're making decisions as to and seizing what my professor would have said, seizing the moral high ground and saying, this is true, this is not true.
Well, I will tell you, maybe even a more slippery slope than this is true, this is not true.
Adam and slippery slope guy.
More is, I have deemed this dangerous. Well, think about how broad that is. What you think is dangerous. I'll tell you the spectrum of who thinks what's dangerous. Evel Knievel, my mom. That's how much room there is between people and actual danger or perceived danger or emotional danger. You're just announcing. And by the way, how fucking convenient is it? Does everyone who you disagree with, you go, well, that's dangerous. We can't have that kind of. We can't have that kind of. I mean, Washington Post came out that Hunter Biden, laptop thing like that. Was it Washington Post? Sorry, New York Post. New York Post. Hunter. There's like that. Take it down. And when they were grilling these guys in Congress, they were like, well, first off, they just spoke in circles. Like, why did you take down that article? It's like, well, we didn't substantiate. Oh, they said something like, because the laptop was like seized illegally, whatever, they didn't do it. And of course, whoever's questioning him went, 10 minutes ago, you put up Trump's tax returns. That's illegal. So no problemo. I mean, they fucking showed their hand big time, and they shouldn't have done it.
I just don't understand this. Look, I have fought cases repeatedly. I've sued on behalf of clients on the basis of free speech. I've defended criminal cases that I believe were brought. Generally it's an obstruction case. That's if a cop doesn't like your speech, they cite you for obstruction. And said you weren't complying or something like that. And I've always found that
during an arrest.
During an arrest, yeah. I mean, that's a 148 in California, at least.
By the way,
conceivably,
does that work anymore? I see women screaming at cops like, "I'll suck your dick if you change your vote." Like, thank God those are on the internet for that young guy.
But it's not a. No matter which side of the issue you're on. I don't know that anybody wants to live in an America where there is, you can have fake news. You can have crazy opinions. You can have what you deem to be something that's uttered that is false. But okay, so why isn't that part of discourse? Why is it? Well,
don't we live in a place where there's a group called Flat Earthers? Mm-hmm. And then there's another group that thinks there were no Jews in the towers when it came down.
You got the Turks. I'll bring it back again. Turks who were saying that the Armenians were insurrectionists and caused their own genocide. Right?
So we have those groups. We're aware of them. Mm-hmm. We don't participate with them. We have white supremacists and we have Antifa, and we just.
It was one of the things that I've always found a little bit different from us in Europe, and. Is that in Europe you can criminalize speech, and Turkey does that once again. They criminalize speech with journalists, and they put journalists in.
It's an interesting phenomenon. I can't be the first person to bring this up, but I haven't really heard it. It's interesting from a sociological standpoint that this country was essentially founded by Europeans who were fleeing oppression, religious and other, came here to open a free society. And every year we become more and more like Europe. We look at Europe and we go, in Sweden they have, and we are essentially, we then sit here and look at them as some sort of model so we can craft our country. And it's like, that is the exact opposite reason this country is here. But it's a very interesting, it's an interesting phenomenon that we're now looking the other direction. We're looking back toward Europe going, how can we be more like this place our ancestors fled?
Well, and it's interesting because in the law, at least through the Anglo-Saxon tradition and all of the things that we've imported through the common law and everything else, we pick and choose. I mean, I've mentioned for years that you have kind of the tabloidization, if for lack of a better term, of the criminal law. Criminal trials when they're kind of supersized. In England, they have that coverage, and the Fox News model, which Murdoch brought to America in a large degree, but in England, they've got the Contempt of Court Act where they kind of shut down coverage. And so that's one way to try to act as a prophylactic against undue media bias. And we don't have that. So it's almost as if we pick and choose some of the worst aspects.
Yeah. And what do you make of that whole Johnny Depp thing going on in Europe?
I do not understand. There must be. I wish I knew one of the lawyers involved, but I don't understand. I never understood in real time. In fact, I was doing some punditry for Ashley Banfield on a show of hers, and I said in real time as this was all coming out, I don't understand who convinced him that this was a good idea, or there must be some motivation I can't figure out as to why he's doing it, because it was a shit show of monumental proportions. And did
literally,
Did nobody ever tell him this is not going to go well?
I don't know. I don't know, but I do like you when you're perplexed and you're like, why did this person do this and who let them do it?
You don't have to sit by and let your client commit.
And the dominoes are already starting to fall. He was fired from the Warner Brothers Harry Potter spinoffs this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, this morning?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What?
It's just,
why was he fired? I mean, I know it's like someone shit the bed, and because did he hit her? Was there abuse?
The claim he was trying to fight against was a headline that called him a wife beater, and a court basically went out and went, no, that's accurate enough. And at that point, Hollywood's got to sort of do something.
And by the way, for whatever Rorschach or free association, before this trial, I did not, when I thought of Johnny Depp, think wife beater. That was not the first thing I ever thought of.
And now, when I say Johnny Depp,
wife beater.
Kind
of like Sean Connery, poor Sean Connery. As soon as he died, they started playing the Barbara Walters interview around the internet, right?
It was so precious because she kind of gave him an out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And she's like, well, what about that? And he could have said, look, you never do it. But if there's a situation where she's endangering her own life or the life of a child or something, then you have to do it. He was just like, hey, look, sometimes arguing isn't enough.
I know. And it was just like, wow. Talk about a different time.
Oh, my God, the glory. I mean, a totally different time. The first things first, he could have slapped Barbara Walters there, too. I mean, he didn't like this bitch asking this question, even. It's still, I don't know.
God. Are we going to now we'll get muzzled or thrown off the podcast for laughing when Adam makes a joke.
It's not as, it's still, I don't know if it's as good or as bad as the Deacon Jones head slap. That's an all-timer.
The Deacon Jones is an all-timer, but for me, the Sean Connery one's a different level because she's referring back to an interview he did in like the 60s where he could easily have been like, well, it's, a long time,
right,
everyone's thoughts evolve. And he was like, I stand by it.
Yeah, he stands by it. All right, let me stand by Tommy.
It's one of the reasons why you generally don't want to put your clients on the stand.
Tommy John. I always say push yourself. Seek discomfort. Yes, I was in my cold swimming pool this morning seeking discomfort, but then I got out and I put on my Tommy Johns. That's real comfort. Start every morning in Tommy John underwear. It's the most comfortable you'll ever be. And they don't have customers. They have converts. That's what Tommy John has. Once you get on to Tommy John, you don't get off of Tommy John. I put on my first pair 7 years ago, and that's it. I don't travel with anything. I don't leave the house.
It's addictive. You basically throw away the rest of your stuff.
I can't bring myself to throwing away the Calvin Klein Midways because they were like $28 a pop. That's much my dad bought furniture
You're channeling your inner Armo.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Over 96% 4-star plus reviews on over 12 million pairs sold. It's the best pair you'll ever wear. Or it's free. Guaranteed. Right, Gary?
That's right. Go to TommyJohn.com/RD for $20 off site-wide. Get $20 off only until November 9th at TommyJohn.com/RD. TommyJohn.com/RD. See site for details.
Any other
well, I was just going to say, I also just noticed as we were coming in here, Bannon's lawyer, Bill Burke, who's a very accomplished white-collar defense lawyer, apparently filed something asking to withdraw from the Southern District case. So not only do you not say pike on a
head on a pike,
but you can lose your lawyer as well if that's the reason for it.
His quote, Bannon's quote, if you guys would like to hear it, is kind of great. He said, "I'd actually like to go back to the old times of Tudor England. I'd put the heads on pikes, right? I'd put them at the two corners of the White House as a warning to federal bureaucrats. You either get with the program or you're gone." I like that he's positioning them at the corners of the White House so that no matter which way you approach from.
And I've known people who have told me every once in a while they just fire an employee to put a head on a pike in the village so that people understand that there's consequences. But I guess that's now we're in an age where you can't go down that road. That's violence.
I see my problem with Twitter and a lot of this stuff is their censorship seems to just go sort of one direction. It heads toward Republicans. It's like my friend Dennis Prager has PragerU, and one of the PragerU 5-minute videos that was flagged, it wasn't taken down, but it was flagged in that it can't be shown in schools or libraries. It's a parental consent thing. So first off, Dennis Prager is less than G-rated, and PragerU, the word damn hasn't even been said on PragerU. They flagged a PragerU video on the 10 Commandments, and when they got him in front of Congress to talk about what it was, you know what the answer was?
What?
Well, it says thou shalt not kill. So one of the commandments has the word kill in it.
And that's
right, but that's not why they did it. PragerU's a conservative outfit, and they do that to conservatives. So just fucking say you're doing it then. You look like idiots when you say one of the commandments was not suitable for 14-year-olds.
I just think it's such a dangerous place to be when you're starting to police ideas and speech.
One of their other banned videos has the hyper-controversial title, "Do Not Steal."
Right. Oh, is that a PragerU? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Well, wait, there was another thing today. What was banned on Facebook? Something about steal this election or steal this?
It was stop the steal.
Stop the steal. I don't understand.
Why?
Because it's impugning the integrity of the elections, no, it isn't. It's somebody saying stupid stuff. And
by the way, anyone who spends any time on Facebook knows that Facebook group is about the most insane place in the world. So we're going to start.
One of the reasons I stay assiduously away from it.
Yeah.
Why? But so we'll get to why Johnny Depp this. Why open yourself up to this exposure if you're one of these social media companies? Like, you're really gonna, like, if someone said, well, we want to get rid of these PragerU videos, I'd go, don't do that. It's going to make us look like we have a bias, like a political bias. Who cares? You know what I mean?
I thought that it was a preemptive strike from the threat of antitrust enforcement, but that could just be a naive view. but very little of this makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, there's, for instance, with the TikTok whole situation, there were a lot of people who thought that the reason that the administration had taken aim at TikTok is because of the Oklahoma rally where the TikTok it went viral, I guess, for lack of a better term, and there weren't very many people there, and that was enormously embarrassing. That was one theory. And then the TikTok getting thrown to Oracle was a way of payback, so to speak, or by the administration, and making it American and not Chinese. So you never really know. I don't know how you would discern what the real motivations are and whether or not you can do it. It just shows, I think, that we're in an age where there is a danger anytime you try to, as I said, police the marketplace.
I'll tell you the scariest group of Americans for me. It's not PragerU. It's not the people that are censoring PragerU. It's the huge group of Americans who understand that these people are censoring and who agree with it because they disagree with PragerU. Those are the scary people.
I say that all the time. I can disagree vehemently with these people, but that doesn't mean I want to eliminate it. I mean, that to me, that's because then what? God forbid you have a thought that's not Quran. Then what?
All right, a thoughtful note to go out on. Live ACS and stand-up. That's November 20th and 21st, West Palm Beach Improv, and Mark's going to be there. We're doing a matinee show of Reasonable Doubt. That'll be at Saturday, probably about 3 or 4 o'clock. Yeah. So we're doing a live one of those. We did one and had a blast in Utah. So
we sure did.
We'll make sure they got the Don Julio for you. You can go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live stand-up shows. December 12th, Burbank, I'm doing a show. It's the Pickwick Bowling Alley. I'm doing like a car show and a stand-up show,
really?
Like an outdoor show.
You're going to channel your inner Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's what the Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank is using as their offsite during COVID.
Okay.
So Flappers,
yeah,
AdamCarolla.com for tickets, but also on the Flappers website.
Hopefully more people show up than a Biden rally. Those were pretty sparse. All right, and you can go to
social distancing.
You go to our website. Go to check out all the stand-up on our YouTube, youtube.com/Adam Carolla. Mark,
we've got Engine Company 28. We're outdoors and music most nights of the week. We've got 10E, Mediterranean Tapas. We're open again downtown. Come down, watch all the boarded retail stores on 7th Street and feel like you're in a different era. Then Capri Southampton still open. V Palm Springs, come by, say hello.
So, till next time, Adam Carolla for Mark Garagos saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.